Good evening, folks. Daniel here with Driving and Dragons, and today we're going to get back into some hardcore tabletop role playing game content. Just the kind of stuff that I really love to talk about and getting away from some of the YouTube and X and Twitter drama since that took up my last two spots. And today we're going to talk about how you're doing it wrong when you're ending your campaign on a tabletop role playing game. So, this is one of those things that's it's almost a non-issue because let's face it, campaigns usually end because of things that have nothing to do with the campaign. They usually end because somebody moved away. Somebody had a change in their job, so they're no longer part of the group. The people just drifted, went different ways, had personal problems. People got tired. That happens a lot. People get sick of their characters and move on and kind of push the DM or the game master to maybe do something a little different because they've gotten stale in their character. And there's a whole nother video that we can make on how to keep your campaign going, how to maintain the momentum, how to maintain the interest, how to keep the characters involved. There is one tip, which also could be its own video that I'm going to put out there, and this is for all the players out there. If you're a player in a narrative game, which is what I specialize in, is narrative games, you have to resist the urge to do these monolithic 5 and 6 page backstories. You've got to stop that. And there's a very big reason for it. If I'm creating a movie, writing a book, crafting a story to tell, it's fine for me to have these detailed monolithic backstories, to put this kind of effort and time into it to really craft out where these characters are going, because I am the one who is crafting all the different character arcs and all the different stories, and I'm the one who's deciding which one needs more emphasis, which one needs less emphasis, and where we need to move forward with our character progression. When you're talking about a tabletop role-playing game, there's 4 other, 5 other, 6 other, 3 other, however many other people at the table that are all playing with you. They all have their own characters. They all have their own stuff. You also have the game master. You have no clue what he's bringing into the world and what he's bringing into the narrative, what he's going to put at these characters. So the more you dig and put into your character's backstory, the more you are going to have invested in that character's development. And when parts of that development are not used, when things don't go in a manner that really makes sense for that character or fit for them or work with you the way you want it to work with your backstory, it causes you to have a disconnect. It causes you to feel out of the, singled out or out of the game or not as important. And it drives you away from that character and makes you want to have the next one. Because even if you're totally not doing the victimhood thing, you're not trying to pin this on anybody, you're not trying to hold it against your game master or trying to think about it was, all about you or anything, you're still thinking in the back of your head, hey, this character just didn't really work for this game. I'm going to start thinking about my character for the next game, and maybe that character will work for whatever the next scenario is. So if you have a more brief, more simple backstory with a couple of small elements that can work, you can focus on those elements, develop them, and still be happy with your character and not get bored halfway through the campaign. So that couple of minutes right there is the little piece for all the players out there who find themselves getting kind of tied up and frustrated with their characters because they're not getting enough love from the game master. Sometimes the reason why you're not getting a lot of love from the game master in a narrative game is because you're giving too much to love. So what is a game master to do to end a campaign? Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video here. Really, there's 2 things you need to do narratively to end a campaign well. And that is, you need to bring resolution. You need to bring a sense of accomplishment. And not necessarily just a sense of accomplishment, but a sense of peak accomplishment. This is one of the problems you have with big bad evil guy syndrome, is if you ever leave the idea that there can be a bigger, badder, evil guy, your players are never going to have the sense of peak accomplishment that comes with the end of, accomplishing your epic quest. What you want to have happen at the end of your game is you want it to feel like anything that would happen to these characters after the game is over, after the last session ends, fits neatly into the epilogue. It is something that might be a cool story, might be a fun thing for them to write, might be a fun thing to visit for an adventure or a one shot or a hey, remember that time, we loved those characters, let's pull them all together, and this Christmas we're going to have like a special Christmas adventure where it's a one shot with those old characters we had and see what they're up to, since they completed their mission. But it's not ever going to be back in the same story, and it's not ever going to be to the same scale. That brings me to a sense of peak accomplishment. When I say peak accomplishment, I mean that character's primary destiny has been fulfilled. That character's main goal and main purpose as a being in the universe has been fulfilled by them completing the campaign quests. They may not have finished everything that has to do with their character, their character's arc, or what's important to their character, but that character going back to kind of accomplish some of their personal goals and stuff is now very much secondary to whatever accomplishments they have. It falls into the habit of that elite businessman who's made billions of dollars and had multiple successful companies and everything, suddenly deciding that he wants to go out and catch a 500-pound marlin off the coast of Florida. It's like catching a big fish just doesn't seem like it really measures up to the rest of the stuff he's done in his life. When you look at like a Howard Hughes in real life, some of the stuff he did later in life, he did some great stuff, but none of it seems to measure up to the great feats of aviation and business that he accomplished when he was younger. So, what are we going to use for an example to illustrate this? I'm going to use the best piece of fantasy literature ever written. I'm going to use the thing that some of our companions over in the Bro SR, this is once again where good old Jeffro Johnson just has his head planted firmly in his own colon and is completely off base, and that is The Lord of the Rings. It is the most brilliant and complete piece of fantasy ever, is Tolkien's world. Let's look at the Fellowship of the Ring as they set off. They defeat, by accomplishing their mission, accomplishing their goal, and destroying the ring, they have defeated Sauron and moved the world into an entirely new age. There may be, and definitely will be, other big bad guys and other great villains and stuff that come later on. There will be other evil in the world because evil will always be in the world. But those characters, Frodo, Merry, Pippin, Sam, Gandalf, Aragorn, Boromir, of course, is dead, Legolas, Gimli, they are never going to accomplish anything more than what they have already accomplished through the defeat of Sauron. You look at them in their post War of the Ring adventures, even the ones that are in the books, such as the Scouring of the Shire. When the hobbits show back up at the Shire, and Sauron and Grima Wormtongue have taken over and started to industrialize the Shire, and they've dug up the party tree, they basically get spanked by the hobbits. In particular, Merry and Pippin. They basically get their butts whipped and thrown out on their ear like they're nothing. Because they are nothing. Taking care of a washed up, virtually powerless at this point wizard and Grima Wormtongue, who've convinced a bunch of hobbits that they need to be in control of the Shire, that is child's play after fighting in the wars of Rohan and fighting in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and fighting at the Black Gate and going through the pass of Cirith Ungol and destroying the ring. It's like, who are you going to talk to me? It's it's like saying I was the former UFC champion. Why am I going to struggle with Jim Bob from the local gym over here? I'm not. That's not a case anymore. And it even happens further past the end of the Lord of the Rings when you start reading the appendices and the afterwards and that sort of thing. Of course, Sam becomes a mayor of Hobbiton and the governor of the Shire and everything, and he raises his family. He eventually goes to the Undying Lands as a ring bearer, just like Frodo does. Frodo, of course, Frodo has his own little afterward where he never really heals, he never really recovers from what he saw, he never really gets past it. So he takes one last journey to the Undying Lands where he can truly be healed. Merry and Pippin both become, sheriffs of the Shire. They fight in various different small military actions and stuff later in their life and become great leaders and even have other adventures and go back to Gondor and Rohan. Aragorn becomes the great King Elisar. But none of that ever measures up to what they did during the War of the Ring and never will. This is how you end your campaigns. It doesn't have to necessarily be a fight with a big bad evil guy. Let's talk about the title of this video and how you're doing it wrong. How you're doing it wrong is focusing on some kind of great combat encounter. I'm not saying you can't have a great combat encounter. I'm not saying you can't take out the dragon, fight the Dark Lord, defeat the evil Blackguard Paladin, take down the evil Megacorp, destroy the Emperor's battle station. You can do all that kind of stuff, but it's not. Focusing on a battle is a mistake because it makes everything come down to some die rolls, character abilities. It makes everything mechanical, and it really reduces the whole game to a fighting simulator if that's the mentality you take into it. It also leaves you with the idea that there's always somebody who has more pluses, more magic, more spaceships, more whatever on the backside that could be the bigger challenge for your players, and it leaves you without that sense of peak accomplishment. You want it tied to greater stakes. In The Lord of the Rings, it's not a battle on the steps of Mount Doom with sword and shield against Sauron. It's we must destroy this, and when we do, it uproots evil from its base across the entire world. No, it's not gone. No, it's not permanently gotten rid of. Yes, it will always be there, but at this point, until the time we're dead, it is going to be on its back foot because we have uprooted the central pillar of it, and we did it with multiple different actions. The next thing you need is to avoid, and this is a place where you're doing it wrong and where a lot of bad advice is out there on ye olde interbots about ending campaigns and story arcs and stuff in tabletop role playing games. Not every single character needs a resolution. Not every single character needs a happy ending. Not every single character needs to have all their stuff buttoned up. You need something that feels satisfying to the players. But you don't necessarily need to solve all their problems. Don't get into this thing where you have to tie in all the important stuff for all your characters into one neat little bow so that that last session can give everybody their resolution. Even if you do want to somehow or are lucky enough to be in a position to where each character's personal stories can be resolved throughout the end of the campaign, you want to do maybe like one session per player where you're slowly resolving their unique endings. But you're generally not going to get that. And it's perfectly okay to leave something as an afterword, as an epilogue. What is the wizard doing after the great war is finished? Well, he's going out and he's continuing his mystic journeys. He's continuing that great research into that ancient mage that started him on this quest. He never stopped that. He started questing to get that. Finding that ancient mage's first book is what started this whole thing. The whole party went off. They completed this whole adventure. many times over. They gained all these levels. They became all these powerful beings. They spent years and years on this campaign. They finally finished everything, and the wizard goes right back to what brought him there in the first place. He went on the first adventure because he wanted to find out about this weird ancient mage. Finding that weird ancient mage's stuff unleashed all kinds of hell, and he picked up right where he left off at the end. He didn't get resolution to his character, but he already hit his peak accomplishment. Now it's just a matter of going and collecting this stuff. You want to pick out one or two that have that big resolution. This is also where character death becomes a big thing. Characters, you can't really get that peak accomplishment and that true resolution when there's no risk of the character dying. So it's good to have a character die. And then you have to have at least one or two that really do have that final tie-in big resolution. We're going to go back to the Lord of the Rings. And I'm not talking about the Lord of the Rings in terms of writing a story. I'm talking about picking out these principles and seeing how they work in a story. Because when we play a tabletop role-playing game, we are in fact crafting a story as a group. We are creating that narrative. And as the game master, you would like to guide your players to where their individual characters can find these things, and then when we look back, we see a great cohesive story. So you look at Lord of the Rings. Frodo's journey is done. He has done his great deed. That is it. That is the end for Frodo. He gave everything. He sacrificed everything. He never truly recovered. He is a great hero, and that is the end of his story. All right, Boromir died, of course. Gandalf, same deal. Gandalf's great mission for being in Middle-earth is complete. What he was sent here to do has been accomplished. So he's going to look over the last of his friends. He's going to say his goodbyes, and then he is going to sail back home to the Undying Lands. Once again, complete resolution. Aragorn, complete resolution. He fulfills his destiny. He takes over the throne of Gondor. He unites the people. He restores the White Tree. He becomes the great King Elisar. Sure, he's got plenty left to do in his life. He's got to go be a great king, but his character hits their resolution. Merry and Pippin, they don't necessarily hit a resolution point. They went on the journey essentially to be good friends to start with and to be supportive, and didn't really know what they were getting themselves into, and they were immature. And as the story went, they matured and they became great leaders. And the story of their life just began really after their exploits in the War of the Ring. So they didn't get necessarily character resolution, but you know where their character was going. And you know what? If we want to play a happy, cool Christmas game or something, oh, well, the river froze over and warg riders and wolves came into the Shire, and now Merry and Pippin are there to step up for it, and you get to play those characters again. Same thing with Gimli and Legolas. They completed their missions. They went back to their lives. They completed their missions. They went back to what they were supposed to be doing. Elrond, who of course wasn't a member of the party, so to speak, he's the same as Frodo and Gandalf. His long-standing mission of everything, his great duty is complete. It's time for him to go. So each one of these characters you see that were part of the Fellowship of the Ring, they each had their own level of resolution. Sam gets to have his part after the place too. He gets to earn his just rewards for being the good steward that he was. These are the kind of endings that you can have for your players. And if you sit here and bust your ass to try and give every last one of them the neat little bow ending to their backstory, all you're going to do is make a muddled mess where everybody's kind of sitting and thinking about some stuff. Let the questions sit. Let the little things be there for your ending. So to wrap this up, when you're ending your campaign, a couple of things outside a game I'd talk about first. One, let your players know, hey, we're coming up to the end, guys. I'm coming up to the end of this story. we're coming up to the end. What do we want to play next? What do we want to look forward to? Are we going to move to Call of Cthulhu? Or are we going to move to Cyberpunk? Are we going to move to Dungeons and Dragons? Are we going to play Pendragon? What are we going to do next? What do we want to do next? What are we thinking? Okay, let them know. Hey, we're getting towards resolution here. Second, in game, focus on what makes sense to everybody and kind of guide them in that direction. Give them the opportunity, give them the options. Give the players off ramps where they can find certain level resolutions to certain things if that's what they need. And then bring it all to a head with a climactic moment. Notice I didn't say a climactic battle. I said a climactic moment. Give them that peak where it all teeters on the balance, and once they succeed, everything after that is the wrap up. Everything, you may not even roll anything in the aftermath. This is it. They got the scroll and cast the spell. They put the ancient artifacts back into their place and sealed up the ancient evil again. Even if they got to go kill his mortal form now, that doesn't matter. They've already sealed him up. Maybe they have defeated the great Dark Lord. Maybe they have shot down the dragon. But give them that clear and concise, climactic moment where it all comes to a head and they get that relief and they get that release and they get to think about what's next for their character. But don't worry so much about making sure that everybody has a character at the end who has nothing left to do. They can have plenty left to do. Just make sure it's not as big as what they've just done. So that's what I've got to say about ending campaigns. See you guys going forward here in 2025. We're going back to some world building with the next video. Like, share, subscribe. Please drop a comment below about what you think about ending campaigns. Drop a comment below and tell me how you ended your last campaign. How did it come to a head? Did the whole game just fall apart and blow up because of real world stuff? Or did it have a nice, neat ending? And then tell me how you want your campaigns to end, because I'd really like to hear about that in the comment section below. But until next time, you guys have a good day.